20 or 30 years, nations exploded on the African scene. And as I've done my studies of the different nations, it's clear to me that we have to move from a national level to a continental level of development. And as we move to a continental level of development, a regionalization of West Africa, a regionalization of Central Africa, South Africa, etc., we can have greater economic and political development. That's looking externally. But we also have to look internally. We need to go down to the roots of our own communities and work with our indigenous peoples, making sure that there are innovations in farming techniques, innovations in education, innovations that get to the least of us. So we have this double role of unifying externally with others and going internally to the base of our communities and making sure we lift our people up. Africa is on the agenda of everybody, except Africans. Now let me clarify that, because I'm trying to wind down. Every great force and power on the planet Earth knows that Africa is necessary for their future. Mm-hmm. We as Africans, who've inherited this enormous continent, and the African diaspora, wherever we find ourselves, have to develop that same type of consciousness that Africa is important for our future. The Chinese Revolution has achieved enormous goals and objectives, but they know they can't go but so far without the raw materials of the African continent. The Indian Revolution has achieved the same thing. They know that Africa has to be within their sights. The Arab communities in the Middle East with oil wealth know that they need the wealth of Africa. The Europeans have known that for a long time, so that's why they institutionalized slavery and colonialism. Americans have known that, so there are plans in America for Africa. But these are not plans to service African peoples. These are plans to service the interests of others. We have to develop the plans to service African peoples with African values, African interests, and African principles. It's not going to be easy because our minds and our hearts have been messed with. The global communities have miseducated us in their educational systems. And as a result of colonialism, where we were looking the wrong way and to the wrong people for strength, we developed what I call, and what my partner, Dr. Wade Nobles, called a disease which affects us all: shattered consciousness and fractured identities. And until we come up with an African solution to our shattered consciousness, where we can have the traditional communities, the Christian communities, the Muslim communities all living together, until we can come up with an identity that sees us all as African people rising, will be in conflict and confusion, while others mobilize themselves to take the continent from us again. Images are important. Whoever controls the images controls the self-esteem, the self-respect, and the self-development. So let me leave you with an image of extraordinary importance for us all. And that image comes out of the heart and mind of the president of Senegal, who conceived of a monument, an enormous monument. In the United States, we have the Statue of Liberty. In Rio de Janeiro, you have Christ the Redeemer overlooking Rio. The president of Senegal said, we need a monument that symbolizes where African people need to go. And so he had created the African Renaissance Monument. And this is the image of this monument, the front of it. This is the image of the monument from its back. This monument is an image for us all. It is the African family rising. The image is taller than the Statue of Liberty, taller than Jesus the Redeemer overlooking Rio. The image is not of a war memorial, not of a great leader. It's of a great people. The image is an African man rising, holding on to his foundation in his right hand, his wife, the rock of our peoples, the women. And in his left hand, he's holding up a child That child is not pointing east to Asia or to Mecca. That child is not pointing south to the rest of the African continent. That child is pointing west to the Western Hemisphere. That is the linkage of the Africans in the diaspora with Africans on the continent, which will create a powerful force to transform our world. And that's the image I want to leave you as I open up this plenary section with remarks of African empowerment. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. One little last note. You see this African man using modern technology. It represents the global rise of African peoples. But you can take an elevator and go up 15 stories, past the powerful thighs of the black man, through his backbone, up past his neck, into his mind, and you can look out on the world and dream of African greatness. These are the images we need, African peoples, not images of our death and destruction and our chaos